All right, guys, welcome to this week's Plots and Pots here at Triple H Homestead. Hopefully it's not too windy on the mic for you, and hopefully the storms stay off a little bit. But this week for this story, I'm just waiting. Nothing major, but I didn't want to do anything too involved while I'm telling this week's story, because this week is a doozy. And before I get started, I just want to give I guess it's like a warning, a disclaimer that this week's story, I know I've talked about death in the past and poisoning, but this week's story involves young life being taken. Okay, so just want to put that out there. So if you're not okay with hearing about that, then please skip this week. We'll catch you on next week's, okay? Because next week is one of my favorite stories. But so this week we're talking about John List, okay? And he is called the Family Annihilator. I have known about his story for quite some time, but researching it really threw me for a little loop, because I didn't realize how meticulous he was in his planning. I apologize for the neighbors. So let's jump into it. So just a little backstory on John List. He comes from a German American background, okay? His dad was pretty strict and basically made John feel like if you could not provide for your family without any help, you weren't a man, okay? And with that, John grew up with his mother, because his dad was out working or whatever, but his mom was kind of like a germaphobe in a way and would not let John out and about, because she didn't want to have to worry about him getting sick and all that stuff. So anyway, I can't remember if he did. So he graduated high school, and as soon as he graduated, he enlisted in the Army during World War II. Okay, so World War II, he served our country, greatly appreciated, and eventually he meets this lady named Helen. Helen's backstory is that she is a widow due to the war, and she has a daughter. Okay, so she had a daughter with her first husband. The daughter's name is Brenda. She meets John. I don't know where he was serving or where he was stationed, but she meets John, and she somehow forgets to tell him that she has syphilis. And she has syphilis because my assumption is that her first husband was doing a deed elsewhere during the war and gave it to her. Now, during the war, penicillin, which would help with syphilis, was being rationed like so many other things. But they were trying to save penicillin for the soldiers. So the doctors treated her for syphilis by giving her malaria. Okay. Now, the thought process with that is that the fever from the malaria would help kill off the syphilis. And in theory, it did. So she was not contagious anymore with syphilis, but syphilis was still wreaking havoc in her body for the rest of her life. It got so bad that before she was killed, like it was destroying her brain. Like it was really bad for her. Okay, so she forgets to tell John that great omission of truth. And she also tells a little fib that she's pregnant with his child. And therefore, John does what he thinks is the right thing and marries Helen. Altogether, they are married for 20 years. So it looks like I skipped that spot right there, but I like to go down and work my way back around. But anyway, so altogether, they are married for 20 years. And during that 20 years, they have 3 children. They have Patricia, who her friends call her Pat. They have John Jr., which I believe they say was John's favorite. And then they also had another son, and his name was Frederick, but they called him Fred. Okay. John was, he had a hard time holding down a job. He had the social skills of a recluse. He was very meticulous in making lists and being orderly and little OCD and a little, just tight-fisted and butt-clenched. But he had no social skills. He could not go out and just talk to people. So he's definitely an introvert, but even introverts, like I consider myself an introvert, at least when you feel comfortable, you can carry on a conversation. Yeah, no, he couldn't even do that. So his main job was an accountant, and he fumbled through some jobs, and he ended up, let's see, his first job that I remember seeing was with KVP Sutherland Paper Company. When they got bought out, they downsized, and he was one of the ones that got let go. And then he went to Xerox. It's not a business name you hear too much anymore. Something happened there. He got fired, or he tried to call their bluff, and they're like, no, you're gone. And then he lands the job of all jobs for him. He becomes the VP and comptroller for the First Bank of New Jersey. Now, as the VP and comptroller, his job was to go out and secure new clients. Guess what he can't do because he has no social skills? He can't secure shit. And eventually, he ends up getting fired from that job as well. He hit it big with that job. And when he was there, he bought a house named Breeze Knoll. Beautiful house. I'll throw a picture up. It had, they call it a mansion. And honestly, I would say it was considered a mansion. But it had 19 rooms. It had a damn ballroom in it, okay? I don't know how many square feet. If I can find that information, I'll throw it up here. But it had a ballroom in it. Beautiful. And he didn't have the down payment for that right away. Just because he just got the job, so he didn't have the down payment, and he was struggling. So he went to his mom, Alma, and Alma's like, yeah, sure, I'll give you the down payment. I think the down payment was like $10,000. She's like, under one condition. If I give you the down payment, I'm moving in. So, I mean, she was nice to give him the money. However, his wife was Helen was not too thrilled that Alma was going to be moving in. And I get it. But the house was big enough that honestly, would Helen have even really noticed? But I think her and Alma, they like butted heads. So he got his way, Alma got her way. They moved in to Breeze Knoll. Everything was going great when they were staying there, other than the fact that John lost his job as the VP and comptroller. Nobody in the family knew that he lost his job because he was still getting up at the butt crack of dawn, going to the train depot, sitting there and reading the newspaper and taking naps all day, and then would come home. So he would make it seem like he had a job. The job that he ended up getting after that was he sold like insurance and like mutual bonds or some crap like that. But it wasn't the salary that he was used to. Okay. So with him not having that salary that he was used to, they were in the beginnings of foreclosure. So he took out 2 mortgages on the house. He was putting his hands in his mom's checking or savings account and was steadily pulling money out of there. I don't think his mom knew. I don't think Alma knew. So he started making a plan. All right, and that plan was to take his family out. Sorry, I told you. Now, not only was he like pretty proud of his German heritage, which I would imagine would have definitely been odd when he was fighting in World War II, but he was also a devout Lutheran. Just experiencing some things during this time. This is also during the late 60s, early 70s. So the hippie, free love, peace, drug use movement was ramping up. And his oldest daughter, Patricia, Pat, had started showing interest in becoming an actor. And he just knew that by her becoming or having that interest in becoming an actress was going to steer her away from the Lord. The other thing that was happening in the household during this whole time that he was losing his job, finding another job, second mortgages and stuff, was the fact that Helen, the symptoms of her syphilis was getting so bad that she wasn't really taking the medication that she needed to take, I believe. She was just kind of treating it in her own way with alcohol. She probably did take other pills and they probably were not prescribed to her for what she needed them for, but so she was just supplementing, I'm going to say, with drugs and alcohol to help her deal with that. Since she wasn't, I would say, of sound mind, and she wasn't as gung-ho with the whole Lutheran religion like John was, she wasn't as devout. Now, he was like, you have to be there whenever the doors are open, very strict in his religious ways. And she was kind of like, whatever. She stopped going to church. She asked that they remove her name from the member list or the roll list or whatever. And, you know, when she started getting pretty bad off, and she would have spells of where she would fall and not be too well or whatever, and the elders of the church offered to stop by, she absolutely refused. She wasn't having it. This was absolute sacrilege. He wasn't having it. He starts praying, and then he has this revelation that if he doesn't do something that if he doesn't do something, his entire family was not going to make it to heaven and they were going to go straight to hell. I guess that was part of his upbringing with his dad being pretty strict. And, he didn't ask for help. He wanted to do it all by himself. And, a lot of men just don't talk things out. And they definitely did not talk and ask for help back in the 60s and 70s. He started making a plan. And in that plan was to his family. This is where doing my research in the podcasts that I watched and the many, many documents that I read through and scrubbed through, because there's a lot. The next little bit of details that I'm about to tell you, they may vary depending on whose research you look at, but in general, this is what John was planning. He figured that if he took care of his family, as in them, they would be spared and they would go to heaven. Now, he planned for 3 weeks, and during this 3 weeks, he asked his family, he asked his kids, if you were to die, how would you want to be buried? Would you want to be buried or cremated? Weird. Patricia is concerned, and even though the kids answered him, she talks to her drama teacher, and I believe his name was Ed, and she tells him specifically, hey, if we go away for a while and you don't see us, like, our dad has us, like, I think he's really trying to plan our demise. The teacher, thinks that, there's a lot of times people say certain things like, I could kill him, or they're just talking out of anger, or maybe they're being a little paranoid or whatever. And so he's like, no, you're completely fine, it's okay. And he really didn't think much about it. He should have. He fucking should have. Apologize for the language. Okay. If you want to skip this, I would say skip it, because I'm not going to pull weeds right now. I'm just going to kind of go into the details of that day. On the morning of November 9th, 1971, John List gets up. He's already made his decision. I think he was talking to Connie Chung in like 2008 before he died. And he's like, it's like D-Day. Once you begin, you have to continue, or something along that line. So I'm just paraphrasing. All right, November 9th, he wakes up, he takes the kids to school. And when he gets home, Helen is downstairs and she is starting her breakfast. That morning when he left to take the kids to school, he took his 9mm, and he also had like a Colt revolver. Helen's downstairs. She is beginning to eat her breakfast. He walks in, gun is hidden. She says, good morning. He repeats it back, and he walks behind her and shoots her in the back of the head. He worries that his mother, who is upstairs in like the in-law suite or whatever, could have heard the gunshot. So he races upstairs and he sees his mom. She asked him what the sound was, and he just kind of ignores her. And he pulls out the gun and he shoots his mother. Now, he's unable to drag his mother down the stairs, so he basically drags her to a storage closet I'm guessing on the third or fourth story, whatever it was, but drags her to a storage closet and stuffs her inside that closet and goes back downstairs. When he goes downstairs, because he wants to be freaking tidy and he's, like I told you, meticulous list, he goes down to the basement and he finds sleeping bags, brings the sleeping bags back up to the main floor, unzips them, lays them out flat, and then he drags his wife's body into the ballroom, lays her on one of the sleeping bags, and then proceeds to clean up the kitchen. Okay. Now, I can't remember if he went out. He did. He leaves and starts running some errands. So while he's doing the errands, he makes sure that the newspaper is stopped. So there's not newspapers being delivered onto the porch. He stops the mail from being delivered to the house. He stopped the milk delivery. Like, he had this so planned out that he wanted to make sure that there was no suspicion that was brought onto the house, so that way when he left, he had plenty of time to get as far away as possible. He gets back home, he makes lunch because he's a hungry boy, and he gets a phone call from the school, and it's his daughter Pat, calling saying that she's sick and that she needed to come home. So he's a little pissed off about that because that kind of ruins his plans a little bit. But before he leaves to go get her, he makes a phone call he makes two phone calls. He calls his boss and tells him that he needs to reschedule a meeting that they're supposed to have today, and that he would get back in touch with him on that. And he calls his pastor to let him know that they will not be in attendance for church this upcoming week because Helen's mom is sick. So the family is going to be traveling to North Carolina. Come find out, Helen was born around Greensboro, and I double checked it. She had family in North Carolina. It's kind of weird how this national story still comes back to North Carolina. So that was the story for that. He also scribbled some absentee notes for the children as well, because he knew they were not going to be in school. Okay, so he leaves. He goes to get Patricia, comes back home, and when he opens the door, he rushes past her to kind of catch her off guard. And when she turns around from closing the door, he pulls the gun and he pulls the trigger. When she sees the gun, she turns her head and it goes in her left cheek, kind of ricochets around a little bit, and it comes out her left temple. He drags her body to the ballroom as well, cleans up the kitchen, and he then goes on about his day, finishing up his loose ends. Okay. The youngest son, Fred, comes home about 5 o'clock or a little after 5 o'clock. He comes home and he goes in first before his father. And John is a little worried that he's going to beeline it through the kitchen to the ballroom, but instead, Fred goes towards the dining room. And in the dining room is where they had fish tanks. And apparently, Fred did not feed the fish that morning, so he was concerned about feeding his fish. While he was doing that, John walked up behind him, shot him in the back of the head. It is starting to sprinkle. Okay. The last child, John Jr., comes home, and John hears him or realizes that he's coming home, and he hides behind the kitchen door. When John Jr. walks in, he realizes there's something off, and he's very hesitant when he walks into the kitchen. As he does and he gets further into the kitchen, John, being behind the door, takes the door and slowly closes it behind him. John Jr. turns around. John, the father, pulls the trigger. He turns as the trigger is being pulled, and I believe that caught the father by surprise, and so his aim, instead of being up high, went down low, and it shot him in the back or in the side. The father pulls the trigger again, and that catches John in the head. John Jr. is on the ground, and he is crawling, and he is trying to get away. Because, and I'm going to say this, unfortunately, it did not kill him right away, so he suffered. He crawls, and John, the father, sees this as a sign of disrespect. And he's like, in his head, he's like, I'm trying to save you. Why are you fighting me? I'm telling you, the man, crazy. He rolls John Jr. over, and when he rolls him over, John's eyes are fluttering. And John, the father, gets mad, and he fires one more shot in between the eyes. And because he's irritated, he empties his 9mm and the Colt revolver into his son's chest with a total of 10 to 11 wounds. Yeah, told you this one's a doozy. John, of course, then cleans up, drags all the bodies. He makes sure that they are in the dining room. And he starts writing a letter to his pastor, telling him what he did and apologizing. But he firmly believes that writing this letter to his pastor will absolve him of all of his fucking sins. The audacity of this man. He tells him there are 4 reasons as to why he killed his family. 1, he couldn't take care of them. 2, kind of circles back to 1, he was too proud to go on welfare, and he wanted to save his kids the embarrassment of having to be put on welfare and or having to move completely, because that house was seen as a sign of success. The 3rd was that Patricia was falling away from her religion because she wanted to be an actor. And the 4th reason is because his wife was not wanting to go to church. So that was his reason. I'm going to loosely quote something that he said. He's in that letter to his pastor, he said that at least I can take solace or whatever, knowing that one day I will see them in heaven. All right. He sleeps in the house that night. When he wakes up, he eats breakfast. He takes his bloody clothes that he wore the day before, drops them in a paper bag, leaves the paper bag in the house with the bloody towels that he used, covers the faces of his family members, turns the temperature down to slow decomp, and then he turns on classical music so it would play throughout the entire house. Oh, the other thing he did, evidently they had like kind of like what we have now, like where you can have your lights come on with a timer. Back then, I don't think it was a timer. Maybe it was just a bulb that would just run. I don't know the technology that they had back in the 70s. I don't think it was that sophisticated when it came to bulbs, but hell, you never know. So, and like he had already talked to the neighbors, so the neighbors knew that they weren't going to be in town as well. So for a whole entire month, they're seeing the lights come on in the house, and they're like, oh, that's just to deter the thieves, so nobody will break in. Pretty smart. Pretty smart. I forgot to tell you, whenever he was went to the post office, he mailed keys to the house. So that way, when the bodies were found, the cops would have keys to the desk where additional evidence would be found, because that man is so tightly wound that he could not even stand the fact that they may damage his freaking desk to get information. He drops his car off at JFK International Airport, okay? But he doesn't take a plane. He ends up getting on a train, I think, and booking it to Denver. 18 years go by. And then during that time, a man named Robert P. Clark begins his existence on this earth. Now, the name that he stole belonged to, I think, a kid in the neighborhood. But what blew my damn mind was the fact that back in the day, you could simply request a new freaking social security number with no damn questions asked, and a driver's license. As long as you had a social security card, you could get a new driver's license. He made up a new name for his mom, a new name for his dad, and there was no freaking checks and balances established back in the day. Poof, Robert P. Clark now existed in Denver. True to fashion, though, Robert P. Clark can't keep a damn job. Oh, this man irritates me. He ends up staying, oh, I forgot to tell you too, when he was running his errands and stuff before he left, he cleaned out their bank account. So he took about, reports vary, $21,000, that's way too much, $2,100 to $2,800 is the range that I'm seeing that he took. Some accounts say that he took the money from his mother's account. Then other research says that he saw that she didn't have enough in there because, he'd been taken for so damn long that he just left that alone. So he's on the road with a minimum of $2,000, okay? He pops up in Denver and he is living in like a trailer park in like one of those very tiny modular homes that you can like hook up a hitch to, put it on a car, whatever, a truck, and take off with. Now, his money starts running out, and across the street was a Holiday Inn. So he goes and applies with his new social, his new driver's license as Robert P. Clark, and gets a job as a cook. Joke's on him because he still sucks. He gets fired because he can't hang, and he leaves that job and goes to a country club for another freaking cook. He meets a lady named Dolores Miller, and he doesn't do what he did with Helen. He courts her for a right good while, and it wasn't until 87 is when they got married. So he marries her. She thinks that he's Robert Clark, and they end up moving into a townhouse together. Well, when they move into this townhouse, they have a nosy neighbor, and her name is Wanda. Wanda enjoys the tabloids, and some of y'all might be too young to realize or know, and I don't even know if they still have these at the checkouts, but like National Enquirer and stuff like that. It's like magazines, and it kind of give you like the salacious news, the celebrity gossip, or crime and stuff that is going on nationwide, even across the pond. So some time goes by, And towards the end of 89, I believe it was the end of 89, the marriage for Robert and Dolores was on the rocks. All right, once again, good old John/Robert can't keep a job. And Dolores is, quite frankly, getting tired of his shit. She is threatening to divorce him because he lost a job again. And she keeps trying to tell him, go back to being an accountant, start your own firm or whatever. He tries that, it fails. And then the townhouse that they're living in, he goes through foreclosure again, or they're trying to avoid foreclosure. So she's like, you need to get your mess together. You need to find a job or I'm divorcing you. Well, the job market back in the 80s wasn't that great in Denver. And so he decides to leave and he comes to Richmond, Virginia. So state up north. And this is where Wanda comes in. She sees John Robert packing up his stuff and she's like, what in the world is going on? And Dolores is like, sorry, I see a big weed right here. Dolores is like, oh, we're moving to Richmond. Apparently, you know, Robert has a new job, so we're going to be leaving, yada, yada, yada. And Wanda goes, well, I've been wanting to say something to you because I saw this magazine article about this guy that apparently, you know, his family back in the 70s and they can't find him. And he looks like your husband. Dolores is like, no, not my Rob. That can't be my Rob. And Dolores is like, or Wanda is like, sis, it's your husband. Ask him. Bold? She doesn't. Long story short, she doesn't. One, John was leaving pretty quickly to get to Richmond, and two, she just didn't think that was him, right? Okay. He goes to Richmond, he gets a job as an accountant, and Dolores moves with him, and they found a little ranch house, and so they're living in Richmond, living their best life. Okay, this is my favorite part of the whole thing, and I don't have too much more to read, and I think dinner might be ready. But they go to Richmond, and everything is going dandy. And the funniest part to me is that John/Robert, his favorite TV show to watch was America's Most Wanted. That was a huge deal back in the 80s. So it was like a thing. You watched America's Most Wanted and then Unsolved Mysteries. Oh, best opening theme like ever. But anyway, so it just so happens in May of 89, I forget the date, but John misses an episode. And the episode that he misses is his episode. They have a gentleman come on there and they do a recreational like bust. And now that crap is done with AI, but back in the day, it was done with like clay molds and like it was like a thing. And I'll put a picture up, and the bust that they made looked pretty damn close to John. Even had the scar that he had and everything. Well, guess who's watching it? Because John wasn't watching it. Him and his wife Dolores was off at a church potluck social. Wanda, back in Denver, is watching it with her daughter and son-in-law. She loses it and has her son call the FBI, because not only does he have 5 warrants in the state of New Jersey, but he is also on the FBI's most wanted list. They call the FBI, they come and talk to her. She gives them all the details, even gives them the forwarding address that Dolores gave to her, just in case there was any mail that showed up. So the FBI travels to Richmond, knocks on the door. Dolores answers. She has no idea what's going on. They show her pictures and all this stuff, and she is still in denial. That's not my Rob. That's not my Rob. And they're like, no, yes, it is. Your husband's a killer. And where is he at? They meet him at his job, his accountant job, and they arrest him. He denies for months that he is John List, and he is going to die on this hill that he is Robert P. Clark. They took handwriting samples, they took his fingerprints, and it wasn't until the fingerprints came back that that man finally like folded and said, yes, I'm John List. They don't talk much about the trial because they covered it, but they didn't. You know, it's not like what we're used to now. But he ended up getting 5 consecutive life sentences because New Jersey did not have the death penalty then. And that old man ended up dying in prison in 2008 at like 82, 83, somewhere like that. I think he got pneumonia or some crap. Serves him right. He should have suffered way more. But he died in prison, and nobody claimed his body. When they contacted Dolores, she had divorced him years before, but whenever they contacted her to see if she wanted to claim his body, she didn't return phone calls. She didn't answer the calls, nothing. So they just cremated his ass and threw him in a state burial ground, almost like a pauper's field or some crap like that. I think that's kind of fitting for him. And he met a maker, all right, not the one that he thought he was going to meet. But anyway, so that's the story of John List, the family annihilator. I hope I covered everything because it was a doozy to dive into the details. And pulling weeds is kind of like a monotonous chore. It's a maintenance chore you kind of have to do. But I didn't want to do something that was going to take away from the seriousness of this story because his family, they deserve more than what they got, quite frankly. So I appreciate you being here on this week's Plots and Pots. Next week, we're going to cover a gentleman that is up towards Winston-Salem. So we're coming back to North Carolina. A lot of y'all may know the story. I think Hulu did a thing on it. But we're going to talk about good old Pazuzu, and we're not talking about the demon from The Exorcist, which I absolutely love, my favorite movie. I've got Reagan on my thigh. Yeah, so we're going to talk about Pazuzu next week, so I'm so excited for that one. But as always, I appreciate you guys being here. Stay curious, stay dirty, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.